Right, he said, though his tone carried disappointment. You're welcome any time, though, with or without muffins. She smiled faintly. Careful, I might take you up on that. He held the door open for her. I hope you do. As she walked back to her apartment, her heart beat unevenly. The moment replayed in her mind, the touch, the tension, the unspoken connection. It wasn't just attraction. It was something deeper, something neither of them expected. That night, she couldn't sleep. The city lights flickered through her window, casting soft shadows on her wall. She thought about Liam's kindness, the way he looked at her like she was more than just a passing neighbor. She wondered if he felt the same, if that small touch had meant something to him too. Across the hall, Liam sat on his couch, staring at the empty coffee cups. He told himself not to think too much, not to ruin a good thing with emotions he wasn't ready for. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her smile, her laugh, the way she'd said, maybe I'm going too far. The next morning, Emma found a note taped to her door. Thanks for the muffins. Next time, I'll make dinner. No grinders involved. Else she couldn't help but smile. He was careful, gentle, testing the waters without crossing the line. It was exactly what she needed after years of heartbreak. Someone who didn't rush, didn't push, just stayed. The days passed and their friendship deepened quietly. They shared morning coffee sometimes, watched the rain from the hallway window, traded small jokes and glances that lingered too long. Nothing was said, but everything was felt. Then one Saturday afternoon, she saw him struggling with a bookshelf outside his apartment. Without thinking, she offered help. He laughed, shaking his head. Aren't you the one with the weak wrist? I've recovered, she said proudly. I can lift moral support. He smiled, and for a moment, their playful energy filled the space again. She helped him hold one side while he adjusted the frame. Their fingers brushed once more, brief, accidental, yet charged. She could feel the warmth spread through her again. When the shelf was finally up, he looked at her, eyes serious. You always show up right when I need help, she shrugged. Maybe I just have good timing. He smiled softly. Or maybe we both do. That evening, when she sat by her window, she realized something had changed in her heart. It wasn't just about attraction anymore. It was trust, quiet and rare. Liam had entered her life by chance, yet it already felt like he belonged there. But there was still one thing she couldn't ignore. That flutter of fear every time they got too close. She had been hurt before, and opening up again felt dangerous. She didn't know if he was ready for more either, or if this fragile connection would fade as easily as it began, still deep down. She wanted to find out as she looked across the hall and saw his apartment light flicker off. She whispered to herself, maybe going too far isn't always a mistake. Maybe it's just a beginning. She didn't know that Liam was standing on the other side of his door, leaning against it, thinking the same thing. And though neither said it aloud, both knew that what had started with an accident and a single touch was slowly becoming something neither of them could ignore. The weeks after the coffee and muffins passed quietly, almost painfully. Emma tried to keep her routine work home, reading, but every time she passed Liam's door, her heart skipped a beat. She caught herself lingering a second too long, wondering if he was home, thinking about him before she even realized it. She didn't understand how someone she barely knew could leave such an impression on her. But she couldn't deny the feeling Liam, too, felt the pull. He had wanted to reach out, to continue what had started with laughter, coffee, and accidental touches. But he held back, unsure how to cross the invisible line between friendly neighbor and something more. The tension between them lingered in every glance, in every small act of kindness. They were dancing around each other carefully, afraid to go too far, but unable to let go completely. One evening, Emma was cooking dinner when she heard a soft knock at the door. She froze, hoping it wasn't him, hoping it was just a delivery or the landlord. But the knock came again, hesitant and deliberate. She wiped her hands and opened the door to see Liam standing there, rain lightly dripping from his jacket, though the storm had ended hours ago. Hi, he said, his voice low. Can I come in? She hesitated, her chest tightening. Something in his eyes told her this was important. Of course, she said finally, stepping aside. They sat at her small kitchen table, the air filled with the aroma of garlic and herbs. Liam didn't reach for the muffins this time, didn't make any jokes. Instead, he looked at her with a seriousness that made her stomach twist. "I've been avoiding you," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "I thought giving space was the right thing to do. But I can't stop thinking about that night. And the time after, I can't stop thinking about you." Emma's heart pounded. She had felt it too. The pull, the tension, the warmth of being close to him. But hearing him say it aloud made everything real and frightening. "Liam, I feel the same," she whispered. "But we can't just rush into anything. I've been hurt before. I'm scared." He nodded, leaning back in his chair as if carrying a weight. "I know. I don't want to scare you, and I don't want to push. I just needed you to know. That's all." Their eyes met, and for a moment, nothing else existed. The city, the sounds of traffic outside, the ticking clock. Just the quiet, powerful connection between them. She could see the care in his gaze, the restraint in his movements. The way he wanted to be closer, but stopped himself. Emma reached for the coffee cup in front of her, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm glad you said it. I think I've been hoping you would." He gave a small, almost shy smile. "You have." "Yes," she admitted, "even though I tried not to." They sat in silence for a while, both caught between longing and caution. Emma realized how much she had missed the small moments, the laughter, the shared coffee, the accidental touches. And yet, fear lingered, whispering that she could get hurt again if she let herself fall too fast. Finally, Liam spoke, his voice careful but firm. "I don't want to force anything, but I also don't want to miss the chance to be with you. If we can take it slow, see where this goes, would you want that?" Emma hesitated, weighing her emotions. She wanted to say yes immediately, to throw caution aside, but part of her held back. I think I do," she said softly. "But we have to be honest. About our feelings, about our past. No pretending." "Agreed," he said, relief flooding his face. "No pretending, just us." For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of calm. Not the excitement that made her heart race uncontrollably, but a quiet warmth that promised understanding, care, and patience. She realized this was more than attraction. It was trust, slowly building. One conversation and one gentle gesture at a time. Over the next few days, they settled into a delicate rhythm. They talked more often, sometimes about trivial things, sometimes about deeper fears and dreams. Every moment together carried a soft electric tension, a closeness that made simple touches feel charged. Emma noticed it when he handed her a pen, when their fingers brushed accidentally while carrying groceries. Even when they laughed over small jokes. And yet they both understood the invisible boundary. Neither wanted to cross it too soon. They were careful, gentle, cautious, and that made the connection feel even more real. One evening, Emma was curled up on her couch with a book when she heard Liam outside. She opened the door to find him holding an umbrella, the rain coming down softly again. He smiled at her, a mixture of hope and hesitation. "Mind if I join you for a walk? Just a short one." She nodded, slipping her hand into his. The touch was brief, but it sent a wave of warmth through both of them. They walked slowly down the quiet streets, the city lights reflecting on wet pavement, the air cool and clean. Neither spoke at first, but their silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was shared, intimate, and full of unspoken understanding. After a while, Liam stopped and looked at her. "Emma, I don't want to push, but I need to be honest. I've thought about holding you close, about letting myself feel what I've been trying to hide. I don't know if you feel the same, but I can't stop thinking about it." Emma felt her breath catch. She could feel her heart pounding, her body reacting to the closeness. She looked into his eyes and saw the same mixture of desire and restraint she felt herself. "I do feel it," she admitted, "but we have to be careful. I don't want to ruin this, whatever this is, before it even begins." He nodded slowly, understanding. "Then we take it slow. No rushing, just being here, being us. That night, as they parted ways, Emma felt a strange ache, not of longing alone, but of awareness that something important was happening. They were both testing the waters, both aware of the tension, both terrified of letting go completely, alone in her apartment. Emma reflected on how close she had come to giving in to the attraction she felt. She realized it wasn't just a simple crush. It was something deeper, rooted in connection, care, and mutual respect. She understood now why she felt drawn to him, why she wanted to be near him, yet why she had to hold back. It was one of those gray Seattle evenings when the sky looked heavy with secrets. The rain had just started, light but steady, misting the air with cold. Emma Collins hurried down the sidewalk, her umbrella tilted against the wind, her grocery bag swinging in her hand. She'd had a long day at work and wanted nothing more than to get home, change into warm clothes, and forget about everything. But life, as always, had other plans. The moment she stepped off the curb, her boots slid on the slick pavement. She gasped as her groceries flew out of her hands. Apples rolling into the street, a loaf of bread tumbling into a puddle. Before she could brace herself, she hit the ground hard. Pain shot up her wrist, sharp and sudden. "Hey, are you okay?" A voice called out through the rain before she could even lift her head. A man knelt beside her, shielding her with his jacket. He reached for her arm, his voice calm but urgent. "Don't move too fast. Let me help you up." She blinked through the drizzle and saw him clearly for the first time. Liam Turner, her neighbor, the quiet one with the brown hair and gentle smile. They'd passed each other in the hallway dozens of times, exchanged polite nods, maybe a few short words, nothing more. Now he was here. Rain dripping from his hair, concern written all over his face. "Can you stand?" "I think so," she said softly, trying to push herself up. But when she put weight on her wrist, pain flared again, and she winced. "Oh no, I think I heard it. Let me see." His voice was low, steady. He took her hand carefully, turning it slightly in his. His touch was warm despite the cold rain. He moved slowly, testing how bad it was. "Does it hurt here?" She nodded, biting her lip. "Yeah, it's just sore, I think." Liam looked relieved. "It's probably a mild sprain, but you should still rest it." Emma stared at his hand holding hers. His fingers were strong, rough, the kind of hands that told stories about effort, about work. But the way he held her now was so gentle, it made her heart skip. For a moment, everything around them disappeared. The rain, the cars, the noise. It was just his steady eyes and her trembling hand in his. She could feel his muscles tense, as if he was aware of how close they were. It wasn't anything inappropriate, just an unexpected spark, something neither of them had planned for. She quickly pulled her hand back, her face warm despite the cold. "Thank you. I'm fine, really. Just embarrassed." He smiled softly, shaking his head. "Don't be. Happens to everyone on these sidewalks. Come on, I'll walk you home." Emma hesitated. "You don't have to, I want to," he said simply. And something about his tone left no room for argument. They walked side by side under his umbrella. She tried not to notice how close he was, how their shoulders brushed with each step. The rain made the city glow, streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement, the air smelling like rain and coffee. When they reached her building, Liam carried her groceries without asking. Inside the elevator, silence filled the small space. She caught his reflection in the mirror. Tall, calm, a faint trace of a smile on his lips. She looked away quickly, feeling something strange and new stir in her chest, at her door. She tried to take the bags, but he shook his head. "You've done enough damage to that wrist. Sit down. I'll put these away for you." She laughed softly. "You're really going above and beyond for a neighbor." He glanced at her, serious. "Maybe I'm just being decent." But there was something in his eyes, something that made her heart beat faster. She didn't know what it was yet. Gratitude, interest, loneliness. Maybe all of it. As he put the groceries on the counter, she noticed a small scar on his wrist. "You said you know about sprains. What, were you a doctor before?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "Baseball player. College team. Sprained my wrist more times than I can count. She smiled. Ah, so I'm in good hands. Literally, he said, grinning back. And for the first time since her fall, she laughed. A real laugh that filled the little kitchen with warmth. After making sure she was okay, Liam turned to leave. You should ice that wrist for a bit and maybe avoid grocery marathons in the rain. Good advice, she said, smiling. Thank you, Liam. Really? He gave her a small nod, then hesitated at the door. If you need help with anything, lifting, cooking, whatever, I'm right next door. I'll keep that in mind, she said softly. When the door closed behind him, Emma leaned against it and exhaled. Her wrists still hurt, but her chest ached for another reason entirely. There had been something in that brief touch, that brief moment in the rain, that had woken something inside her. She thought she'd lost the feeling of being seen, cared for, connected. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about him. About his hands, his quiet voice, the way he looked at her as if she was more than just the woman from next door. She tried to shake it off, telling herself it was just kindness, just neighborly concern. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. And somewhere in his apartment next door, Liam was probably thinking the same thing, remembering how it felt when her hand rested in his. The way she looked at him with surprise and warmth. He had told himself to stay composed, to not let that brief spark mean anything. But the memory lingered, uninvited. By the time Emma went to bed, the rain had stopped. The city was quiet again, washed clean. She stared at the ceiling, her wrist resting on a pillow, and wondered why a simple accident could make her heart feel so complicated. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was the timing. Or maybe it was just the way life worked, throwing people together in strange, unexpected ways, as she drifted off to sleep. One thought stayed with her. She had felt something in that moment, something real. A quiet tension, a warmth that spread through her chest, and a whisper of something that could become much more. And though she didn't know it yet, that one slip on the wet sidewalk wasn't just an accident. It was the beginning of something that would change both of their lives forever. The rain had stopped, but the memory of that night still lingered in Emma's mind. Every time she passed Liam in the hallway, a strange warmth filled her chest, something between curiosity and nervousness. He had been nothing but kind, checking on her wrist, offering small help whenever he could. But beneath his calm voice and easy smile, she felt something deeper, something unspoken that neither of them dared to name. It was Thursday evening when she decided to thank him properly. She'd just finished work, tired but restless, and saw the soft light glowing from under his apartment door. Before she could talk herself out of it, she knocked out. Liam opened the door, surprised but smiling. Hey, Emma, everything okay? She lifted a small basket. I made some cinnamon muffins. Thought you might like some coffee with them. His eyebrows rose slightly, amused. You made muffins. I bought them, she admitted, laughing. But the thought counts. He chuckled. In that case, come in. I've got real coffee, not the instant kind. His apartment was warm, cozy, and unexpectedly neat. The air smelled like roasted beans and cedarwood. He poured her a cup and handed it carefully, still aware of her healing wrist. How's the hand? Better, she said, flexing her fingers. I think you've fixed me with your baseball magic, he smiled. I'm glad, though I can't take all the credit. They sat across from each other at the small dining table. For a while, they talked about little things, work, the neighborhood, the weather. But the conversation flowed easily, like they'd known each other longer than a few weeks. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in months. After a pause, Liam looked thoughtful. You know, I don't usually talk this much. Maybe you just needed the right person to listen, she said softly. His gaze lingered on her for a moment longer than usual, and her heart raced. To ease the tension, she reached for the coffee grinder on the counter. You make your coffee fancy, huh? He stood and joined her. It's not fancy, just fresh beans and patience. Show me, she said. I want to learn. He hesitated. Okay, but it's not that interesting. She smiled. Try me. He placed his hand on the grinder, explaining how to adjust the settings, how the coarseness affected the flavor. She reached out to follow his movement, and their hands brushed. She froze, the warmth of his skin shooting through her like an electric spark. Neither moved. The grinder hummed softly between them. Her fingers rested lightly against his. And she could feel his muscles tense, not in discomfort, but restraint. The air thickened, filled with something delicate and powerful. For a few seconds, it felt like the world had gone still. Then she pulled her hand back, her cheeks flushed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's fine." He interrupted quickly, his voice quieter now. "You didn't." But they both knew something had shifted to break the silence. Emma smiled nervously. "I guess I'm not very good at boundaries when it comes to coffee lessons." He gave a small laugh. "Maybe we both went too far for a grinder." She looked up and their eyes met again. This time there was no mistaking it, the longing. The question neither dared to ask aloud. Emma stepped back, her voice soft but firm. "I should probably go before I burn your muffins." Across the hall, Liam stood in his apartment, staring at the closed door. He felt the same ache, the same tension. He wanted to reach out, to hold her hand, to let her know how much he cared. But he also knew patience was necessary. He had to let things grow naturally without forcing the moment. For both of them, the distance created longing. It created anticipation. It made every glance, every word, every small touch carry more weight. And though they didn't cross the line, that tension, the silent, electric pull made each day more vivid, more emotional, and more meaningful than either had expected. Emma lay in bed that night, thinking about Liam's eyes, his quiet patience, the warmth of his hand against hers, brief though it had been. She realized that some connections didn't need dramatic gestures to be powerful. Sometimes they just needed time, honesty, and care. Liam, in his own apartment, thought the same thing. They were both in uncharted territory, unsure where it would lead, but unwilling to walk away. And that was the point. The tension, the hesitation, the slow dance between desire and caution, all of it was building toward something neither could yet name. But both could feel . And though part 3 ends here, the story of Emma and Liam was only beginning, a story of patience, longing, and the quiet beauty of hearts slowly opening to each other. The morning sun spilled softly through Emma's curtains, painting her apartment in warm light. She had packed most of her boxes the night before. Tomorrow, she would leave Seattle for a new job, a new city, and a new beginning. Yet, no matter how much she told herself this move was about her career, her thoughts kept drifting to Liam. It had been weeks since she last saw him in person. They had shared coffee, conversations, and moments of quiet tension. But the distance that had grown after her decision to leave had made her realize just how much he meant to her. Each memory, his laugh, the warmth of his hand, the soft look in his eyes replayed in her mind like a movie. That evening, as she was closing the last box, she noticed a small envelope slipped under her door. She picked it up, heart thumping. The handwriting was familiar. "If I don't see you again, know that meeting you changed how I see life, love, and everything in between." Slow, patient, and real. Her fingers trembled as she read the note again. Liam had always been careful with words, choosing them with thought. But this was more than she expected. It was honest, raw, and full of feeling. She folded the note and held it close to her chest, realizing that no matter where she went, he had left a mark on her heart. The next morning, she carried the last box to her car, dragging it reluctantly. She didn't expect anyone to be there. Yet, when she glanced down the sidewalk, she saw him. Liam stood there, hands in his pockets, rain lightly misting the air from a morning drizzle. His eyes were fixed on her, uncertain, hesitant, and yet hopeful. For a moment, they just looked at each other. The weight of weeks of unspoken feelings hung in the space between them. Emma's chest tightened. She wanted to run to him, to tell him everything, to never let go. But the rational part of her reminded her she had a life to start, a career to pursue. Still, the pull was irresistible. She walked slowly toward him, each step deliberate. When she reached him, she didn't say anything. Instead, she lifted her hand, offering it to him. Liam's eyes widened slightly, disbelief and relief mixing in his gaze. He took her hand gently, holding it as if afraid to let it slip away. The warmth of his touch spread through her, familiar and comforting. "Emma," he whispered, his voice breaking slightly. She smiled faintly, tears threatening to fall. "This time, I'm not pulling away," she said softly. Liam's relief was palpable. A small laugh escaped him, full of emotion. "I thought I lost my chance," he said. "You didn't," she said. Her eyes locked with his, and the tension of months of longing, hesitation, and restraint melted into something pure and undeniable. They walked together to the edge of the street, under the light drizzle. Neither spoke at first. The quiet around them felt safe, intimate. Emma could feel the rhythm of his heartbeat through the touch of his hand, and it steadied her own racing pulse. "I've thought about this moment every day," Liam said finally, his voice soft but earnest. "I kept telling myself to wait, to be patient, but I couldn't let you go without knowing how I felt." Emma squeezed his hand gently. "I felt it too. I just didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to make a mistake. But now I know I don't have to be afraid." They walked in silence, letting the sound of the city around them, distant traffic, morning birds, the patter of rain filled the space. Emma realized that this was the moment they had been slowly building toward: honesty, trust, and connection without force or haste. It was real, gentle, and safe. And that made it all the more powerful. When they reached a quiet park nearby, Liam stopped and turned to her. "You're moving tomorrow?" he said, his eyes searching hers. "I don't want this to end. Not like this." Emma took a deep breath. "It doesn't have to end," she said. "Distance won't change what we have. We can see where this goes, together, even if I'm in another city." His eyes softened. "You mean it?" "I do," she said firmly. "We've waited this long. We can wait a little longer if we need to. But I don't want to lose what's real between us." A soft smile curved Liam's lips. "Then I'll wait, as long as it takes." Emma felt a swell of emotion she hadn't realized she was holding back. Relief, joy, love, and a quiet peace. The months of tension, longing, and restraint culminated in this moment of clarity. They belonged in each other's lives, no matter the distance or the challenges ahead. He brushed a strand of wet hair from her face, careful and tender. "I want you to know, that first day when you fell on the sidewalk and I held your hand, I felt something I couldn't explain, something I couldn't ignore, and I've carried it with me ever since." Emma's eyes glistened with tears. "I felt it too. That first spark. It scared me, but it also made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in a long time." They stood there, hands intertwined, the drizzle settling softly around them. It wasn't a dramatic declaration. It wasn't rushed or forced. It was calm, gentle, and full of meaning. The connection that had begun with a simple accident, a small touch, and quiet patience had blossomed into something that neither time nor distance could diminish. Finally, Liam leaned slightly closer, brushing his forehead against hers. The closeness was electric, but instead of fear, Emma felt safety and belonging. "Promise me we won't let this slip away," he whispered. "I promise," she said, her voice steady. "No more pulling away. No more fear. Just us." They stayed there a while longer, watching the city wake around them, feeling the quiet intimacy of the morning. For both, it was a beginning, not just of a romance, but of a partnership built on patience, trust, and honesty. Every glance, every touch, every word had led them here, and they both knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as the sun began to rise higher. Emma realized that letting go wasn't about giving up control. It was about embracing what had always been waiting quietly, a connection, deep and honest, that neither could ignore. And Liam understood the same. They had gone through tension, hesitation, and longing, but now, standing hand in hand, they could finally step forward without fear. With one last squeeze of his hand, Emma whispered, Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for waiting. He smiled, a mixture of relief and joy. Thank you for trusting me, for letting go when you needed to, and for staying when it mattered most. And in that moment, under the soft morning rain and the awakening city, Emma and Liam didn't just hold hands. They held the promise of a future together, slow, steady, and full of love. The story that began with a fall, a touch, and quiet tension had finally blossomed into something neither had dared to dream, yet both had longed for Emma. Liam and the connection they shared, this was more than love. It was trust. It was understanding. It was the quiet power of letting go and stepping forward together.